Good evening and welcome to this Happy Guru. My name's Kirsty Bentley Taylor. I am talking at the moment about energies, masculine and feminine energies. I've been talking about them for the last few weeks. It's been a fascinating subject. It's really opened my eyes to myself, the way I work, the way I am with people, when I lean into my masculine energies and my feminine energies respectively, what those kind of powers look like and feel like to me, what I end up kind of manifesting because of them, what I produce because I've used that energy into its full capacity. And it's been a great few weeks for me, in honesty. Like, I went into this subject kind of teetering on after a conversation that I had with a friend, just kind of thinking, actually we need a bit of a balanced perspective about like energies in the world and what needs to be raised and how we can do that. There's a very big movement at the moment to raise the divine feminine energies across the world. Women are beginning to stand in their truth. They're beginning to open their mouths, say that they feel like they've not been treated well, say that we have always been the underdog, and it's time to change that dynamic now. It's time to change the paradigm for something that's going to really work for everybody. And I think as much as the women are beginning to stand up, the men are beginning to realize that this is a real cause as well. I don't think there are many men left in the world, or I'm sure I don't come across many of them anyway, but I'm sure there are many men who can resonate on some level with the message that women are really beginning to be vocal about now, that we're actually standing tall in our truth and saying, hang on a minute, what we do is worthwhile. The way we do things is our way. It's not necessarily your way, but it's a good way, and it deserves to be expressed. And actually, when you think about it, there's a lot of resonance in the way that we do things and that you see it and the way that you'd like to do things, as well as seeing that not having recognized the divine feminine in the world is really beginning to cause chaos as one energy moves further and further into its shadow self. And I'm talking about the masculine energy there. As the masculine energy goes off on a kind of a tangent into its shadow self, into a kind of more arrogant and aggressive sort of place, the feminine energy is saying, hold on a minute, we're really not comfortable with this. And that is being expressed by everybody. The masculine and feminine energies we all have within us, whether you're male, female, whether you're gay, straight, transgender, binary, non-binary, whatever you are, it doesn't matter. Within nature, we have these dual energies as well. In yoga, we call it the Shakti energy for the feminine energy. And it's that Shakti rising again, not against the Shiva, but Shiva would be the masculine energy. And whereas the masculine energy has very much been put on a pedestal for millennia, now we're looking at Shiva coming up and saying, no, my voice needs to be heard. I've held you here. I have stayed downtrodden. I have nurtured this to my own detriment. I have held this space for you, but it's not doing any good. We're seeing more and more destruction, more and more problems across the world. And that's really what I've been delving into over the last few weeks with the masculine and feminine energies, how we can express the best parts of ourselves, the best parts of these energies. Because as much as it's easy to kind of dissect and go through and pick out the bad things and what we shouldn't be doing, what is it exactly that we should be doing? How can we express our best selves? How can we express our energy in the best way possible and really begin to heal, not just ourselves, but our communities, our families, going out into the world, being able to heal the divide and the rifts that have grown really, really strong between certain cultures, societies, different thinking, that it's always seemed to cause a problem. There's no acceptance, there's no tolerance anymore. It's always a them and us situation, or it seemingly has been anyway for a long time. And as much as that is beginning to shift now, I feel like because the Shakti energy has begun to come up now, the feminine energy is beginning to rise, it's causing those shifts. And it's asking everybody to look at themselves and say, what is it exactly that I can do and that I can change to enable this healing that needs to happen? It obviously needs to happen. We're seeing the world in a terrible state. Mother Nature has been ignored, downtrodden. She's been raped. She's been taken. Everything's been taken from her, in so many different ways, and through all different levels of nature, down from drawing energy out of the earth through mining, through coal, through oil, and the selling of all that for power, for money, for greed. That whole transition is all masculine energy gone crazy. And we're all to blame. It's not just men. You know, we're all to blame. It's this masculine energy that has always put power and money and materialism before nurture, the long road, you know, the long haul, keeping us all healthy, keeping us all safe. It's put that there. And there have been a number of historical reasons for this and political reasons and, you know, all of this sort of stuff. There was an excuse for everything. But ultimately speaking, we're seeing it now that we need to really bring up the feminine energy. The Shakti needs to rise so that we can become a little bit more balanced and really begin to heal ourselves, our communities, and I believe the world. So going forward, I'm not the sort of person that really likes to kind of, like I say, sort of say, no, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing this is wrong, that's wrong. I'm more of a person of, okay, let's forget all that stuff and let's start from a base point and really grow from here. So I feel like this, from my feminine side, I feel like actually today's a great day to be talking about this. Tomorrow is the full moon in Capricorn, and Capricorn is a very getting stuff done kind of sign. It's a really empowering sign when you want to take risks, make future plans, change things up a little bit. It's not afraid to take a risk. And we've got the full moon, which a full moon is very much about new starts, about starting new projects, about kind of doing away with the old stuff and starting something new. It's a new leaf. It's a new, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's a full moon. It bursts light on the entire planet. And so those two things, that almost that masculine energy of Capricorn, where it's a real driven sign, you know, it's very much the entrepreneur. It's very much a kind of a free thinker, but it's quite logical. It likes to get stuff done. And it likes to see a way forward with that. And then highlighted by the beautiful full moon, which, you know, inherently the moon sign is more to do with Shakti than Shiva, so more feminine in its energy than the sun energy of the masculine. And in its fullness, it's round, it's full, it's about rebirthing, it's about giving, it's about sharing. You know, I kind of feel like tonight is a great time to be talking about what you can start tomorrow. Okay, so I want you to take that with you as you go forward and listen and begin to kind of judge whether or not there are some changes that you could make in your life. And as always, I really invite you to kind of communicate with me, to drop in if you've got any thoughts that you'd like to add, if you'd like to share anything, if you'd like to, you know, discuss anything, please get involved. I love that. And on that note, before we continue, I'd like to just briefly answer a question that came in to the show last week and that I didn't get a chance to kind of respond to. Somebody touched base and said that, you know, they could understand that in pregnancy, the feminine energy, or females, women particularly, obviously experiencing that, can get very insecure within their energy. They can get very kind of needy, if you like. And there's this whole idea of, you know, now that I'm changing and now that I'm in this different state, am I still good enough? Am I still attractive enough? And unfortunately, there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of worry that goes on with women, that as they begin to change and their focus begins to change, that the men in their lives, the partners in their lives, are going to move into a different space. You know, their needs aren't being met so much, perhaps. You know, the woman is changing very much. Her emotions change, her psychology changes, her physicality changes. And it really, as a relationship, as a couple, you begin to move into a different space. And that can be quite unnerving for both parties concerned, irrespective of energies and where they predominantly lie. It can be quite a challenging thing, especially for your first child. I think once you've seen it through the first child, you kind of become a little bit more, oh, okay, here we go again with the second child. But it's become about the family, and hopefully you've kind of gone through some of the harder times. But the question that I was asked is, do men feel the same way? And I absolutely believe that they do. I've seen this firsthand in my relationship with my husband as I've gone through numerous different changes in my life, from being pregnant to being depressed, through to building my own business, really coming into my own, speaking out about the person that I am and all the experiences that I've had. You know, he has been amazing in his support for me. But there have definitely been times when he's felt really challenged by the changes that are going on in me, and seeing them more predominantly as a reflection back in on him. So I absolutely believe that men feel those differences. And it can be anything, you know, it can be down like to a change in circumstance around you in relationship. But even if you're not in a relationship, often, aging can really take its toll on guys. We're all kind of aware, very aware that as younger versions of ourselves, if you like, we are very taut, we're pert, we've got the six pack, we've got the muscles, we've got the skin tone, we haven't got the wrinkles, all those sorts of things. And the aging process can be very, very hard on both sexes, whether you're male or female, however you express yourself. That aging process, that knowledge that you're getting old, can really bring about a lot of fear. And it's fear in the masculine that you're not going to be good enough anymore, that you're not the strong protector that you once were, that, you're beginning to slow down. Are you going to still be able to provide? Are you still going to be able to put the food on the table, generate the income if you haven't got the energy that you once had? You can begin to feel as a man a little bit less attractive, if a pot belly begins to grow. And you can either choose to do two things at that stage. You can beat yourself up over it, or you can get down the gym. Now, either one of those has its counterbalances, because if you kind of just allow it to happen, then almost you're giving yourself that kind of message that you're just going to deteriorate and that's it. And, you're just kind of going to sit there with it and hold it and let it be, and it's happening to you, and you have no control. And that puts the masculine energy out of balance as well, because they like to have, masculine energy likes to have control. It likes to know where it's going. It's very logical thinking. There's a real process behind it. And also there's that kind of idea as well of kind of just letting go of that control and into something that you don't ever feel like you are, because obviously, for all of us, I think in our minds, we're still that young, virile male or female that we once were. We're still kind of believing that actually we can cut it out there, as against the 21-year-olds or 22-year-olds. And like, this is the kind of I don't know, the sadness, if you like, for me in watching people age in this time that we're in now, is that everyone's constantly fighting it, fighting it for everything. They're fighting the wrinkles, fighting the grey hair, fighting the pot belly, fighting the middle-age spread, if you like, constantly fighting it all, thinking that it is not good enough, that it is, there's something wrong with it, that aging is not natural almost, that needs to be some counterbalance to it, because it's just not right the way it is, which really, when you think about it, is absolutely crazy, and we've all been brought up, ironically, with age all around us. Everywhere we go, you're always either older or younger than someone. Always. In school, in work, in your integrated relationships throughout your family, there's always somebody who's going to be older than you, and there's always someone who's going to be younger than you. It's a natural state within our world. It's exactly the same if you look outside. I'm looking at the tree outside my window, and there are older leaves at the bottom of the stem, and there are younger leaves at the top, and that's no kind of representation of the fact that if you're younger, you're on top, you're all that sort of thing. Because if I remember back, and if I can take you back on your own personal journey, back to your 20s, or if you're in your 20s, take yourself into your teens. Or if you're in your teens, take yourself back into like when you were 10, 11 years old, and recognize how different a person you are then to you are now. Look at all the insecurities that you've had and all the fears that you've faced in your process of aging. Just recognize how much you've learnt, how much you've developed, how much more strength you have, internal strength, the real strength, if you like. Because strength in the external is fine. It's amazing to be physically capable and able to lift strong things or able to run for a long time. That's fine. And that's a great representation of a nice, fit, healthy body. But you can do that stuff whether you're 21 or 60, 71, if you keep training, if you keep your body active, if you look after yourself. You can do it within those age groups. It doesn't necessarily dictate whether you're old or young. It just dictates that you're physically healthy and able, and you've kept trim and you've kept the training up. That's how our bodies work. So to believe that aging is kind of a bad thing and coming against you, just for me seems futile and crazy, if I'm honest. And yet men and women are both being more and more subjected to this idea that they should look younger than they actually are, and that age is a detriment to who they are. And I really don't know where it stemmed from, in honesty. Like when you look back at kind of, or you look into the more integrated societies, integrated into nature societies that are still present on this earth, you know, some of the kind of the tribal aspects and stuff, then the elders are revered. They're looked after. They're held precious. They're listened to because they've had all this life experience, because they've been through more, they've lived more, they've learnt more, they've retained more. You know, they needed those fit, virile bodies in the first instance to be able to procreate, to be able to give themselves a family and learn from that experience. They needed to have gone through kind of the middle age where you begin to balance out from the young, virile, very, very able, physically capable, full of energy body into a different place where you actually reserve your body for the things that actually kind of really matter. You know, you use your energy on different things. So you'll be, instead of training down the gym or, I don't know, partying out with your friends, dancing all night long, you take that energy and you put it into your family and you spend your energy up all night with baby, or, you know, pushing prams to and from various schools, play groups, shops, whatever. You're constantly kind of on the treadmill as a youngster, trying to get rid of this energy and keep yourself toned. And sometimes when you get to middle age, it gets to that point where, geez, the walk to the station is enough. You know, you've done your time. You've already got a long day to get through. You power walked it to the station. You know you're going to power walk it home again. That's enough. So absolutely, I believe that men feel this as much as women do, this kind of imbalance of this aging and this insecurity that comes around it. And obviously, if you have any comments on that, please kind of let me know. So what I wanted to do proactively tonight is just to give you guys some instances of how, if you feel like you lean more into your feminine energy, you can begin to bring a little bit of the masculine back in. If you feel like you lean more into your masculine energy, you can begin to bring back a little bit of the feminine energy so that you can begin to balance yourself. And it's a real journey of self. It takes a lot of looking at, you know, it takes a lot of recognition, self-recognition. It takes a lot of compassion. It takes forgiveness. It takes a lot of honesty, you know. You need to think quite logically, and you need to remove the emotion, which is going to be really hard for those of us that lean into your feminine energy more. To remove emotion is a very typical feminine trait, feminine energy trait. And particularly as women, we tend to lean into our emotions all the time. Decisions are made emotively. Reactions are very emotive. The way we keep our relationships going tends to be based very emotionally. And if you feel like, you know, that you're leaning negatively into that side, then there are lots of things that you can do to begin to bring up the masculine and support that feminine. Because the thing is, neither one energy or the other should be more predominant in any of us. We're definitely going to find that feminine, like female gender, if you like, leans more into the feminine energy initially. But through self-doubt, through the belief that the feminine energy isn't good enough, isn't revered, you know, doesn't really have too much of a place in the world. We haven't really been encouraged to develop the feminine parts of ourselves so much. It's always been a kind of a little bit weird, a little bit out there, you know, kind of on the peripheral, lovely thing to do as a pastime, nothing really to spend too much time and effort on. And yet we admire the feminine energy from afar. We admire the construct of that. We admire art. We admire music. We admire theatre, to the point actually where it's very revered in those senses, but in a masculine form. For example, art, theatre, filming, you know, drawing, painting, writing, all those sorts of things. You're only ever successful in those if you've made money out of them. If you think about, let's take the movie industry for a very, very easy example. People spend their whole lives developing the craft of acting. Some of those people, and it's like that percent of those people, will get recognized and they will get propelled forward by the money-making, power revolving scheme of like acting, directing, producing, that whole money-making genre of individuals who are all about getting the most out of this talent, right? Now, if you're in a feminine energy stage, you're expressing the talent. You're not making anything out of it. That's the shadow masculine. That's the shadow masculine taking something and trying to empower it to make money, you know? So that's where we're looking at now. The individual is expressing. They're developing their craft. They're sharing out their talent. They're being creative. And that is the feminine energy expressing itself. But it's been taken and it's been bastardized. And only if you become famous, if you become wealthy, if you're one of the big names at the box office, if your face is on television, if you get the record deal, if you get the makeup deal, you know, I don't need to go on because we're surrounded by it all the time. That is when the accolade of feminine energy, of that creative source, is revered. For those people who spend their lives creating and living in almost abject poverty because of it, they're living very much in their feminine energy, but they're almost too much in their feminine energy as well. They're not bringing the masculine in to be able to enable them to continue. Often people have to give up their hobbies, or what they call their hobbies, their loves, their passions, and it becomes a hobby because they need to get the bills paid. You know, they need to be able to support the family. They can't do this anymore. They need to step up in some way and step away from that kind of feminine creative force that needs to express itself in them and let go of that to an extent and just go and get a real job. And I think we all know where I'm coming from here. This is not something that is just, you know, beginning to happen. This has been something that's been happening for millennia. You know, people have had to give up their passions, their dreams to get a real job so that they can pay the bills. And perhaps it would be more down to balancing out the energies that would enable anybody that needs to express themselves creatively to be able to do that and earn money out of it, you know, and have the structure behind creative thought and creative process to be able to make a living out of it and generate enough cash that you can support yourself, you can support your family and still live creatively. So that would be a perfect balance of the two energies. So first of all, what I wanted to get into was practical ways of embodying your energies. Okay, so again, I've made lists. There are a lot of lists going on today. So the feminine energy. Typically, feminine energy would be sort of very integrational. It's community, it's love, it's nurturing, it's healing, it's teaching, it's arts, music, all that sort of stuff. But it's also kind of about being in touch with your intuition and expressing from the heart, you know, speaking a lot of truth, being caring, being compassionate. We all have these. This is why I mean these two energies are so integral in all of us. Like as I'm saying these words, actually pictures in my mind of my male friends and people in my family and you know, my husband and my son and that sort of thing are jumping into my mind. All these masculine kind of, you know, role, like people in my life, all this kind of masculine energy is coming in as I'm just talking about the feminine. And that's I think my mind's constantly been going over the last few weeks is, you know, well, that's when he's expressing that. That happens when he's expressing too much of that. That's, you know, and it's just been constant. I can't even tell you. So one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about in terms of embodying your divine self. All right, we're going to start with the feminine first. Just, can I say ladies first in this kind of topic? Okay, we're talking about integration, relationships, caring, being. You know, that when I say being, I mean just being happy with right here, right now, where you are, no process attached. Emotion, leading from the heart, a sense of the community, a sense of the collective. So one of the things that you can do to lean more heavily into those skills, if you feel like you're leaning more into your masculine, perhaps you would be a very kind of like what sometimes described as like a type A or an alpha male or an alpha female, that person who always takes the directive, who's like organizing everybody, who is kind of, you know, quite straight, quite direct with what they do. It's all about getting the job done. It's about how quickly you can get it done. You know, those sort of characteristics, if you feel like you lean more into those, this might be something that you can do to be able to express your feminine energy. So I'm suggesting plan a meal for your family and friends, okay? And not just plan a meal, I mean get right into it. Let's get this creativity flowing. Let's get the fun times rolling, okay? And I don't mean just supplying loads and loads of drink, you know, and food to the point of excess. I mean, think about the whole construct of this meal or of this party, of this gathering that you're going to plan. I want you to think about what would be fun and what your friend, your guests, your family, whoever you're going to invite would enjoy. So I'm thinking about maybe a theme party, something that puts everybody kind of back in straight about into the mood of fun and into the mood of, you know, friendship, happiness, joy, having a laugh, not taking things too seriously. Sometimes the masculine energy can take things too seriously. The feminine energy is very much about letting go, having fun, releasing, relaxing, all that sort of thing. I think just jumping into a question that's been sent, what would make an alpha male or an alpha female? I think it is more about this person who, I think the alpha male or alpha female is somebody that is looking to take directive a lot of the time, which means they're looking to lead. And leading isn't necessarily 100% masculine, but if it is expressed via dominance, arrogance, power exertion, that sort of thing, then that's leading from a place of the ego. That's leading between, it's kind of, so the question that's been asked is there a difference between ego and alpha? What are the real characteristics and how does it differ from someone working from a place of ego? And I think what I would say from there is I think the masculine energy projects very much into the ego, and actually ego can be seen quite easily, I think, in the world at the moment from the masculine energy point of view. And I feel like, well, we'll get into the feminine ego later, but the masculine ego, when it's expressed, this kind of alpha, this masculine kind of drive and want to be like in a hierarchical position. So you're at the top of the food chain. It's that sort of thing. You're the leader. You're the dominant character. You're the one, perhaps in a community situation, for example, sitting around with your friends, you're the one whose voice has to be heard. You're going to be talking over people. You are always going to think that you're right. You are very much going to lean into the idea that your way is really the only way, and that's going to come across, it can come across very subtly. You can just constantly keep nitpicking. You can be that sort of person, and that would be perhaps more like the beta male, if you like, not the alpha. The alpha is very much a driving force. It's very much out there, and that's expressed by a lot of the female, a lot of my female friends actually as well. Where especially when they're in positions, I've got to that age. I'm 41. And a lot of my friends have been really focused on their careers throughout their 20s into their 30s, and they've done really, really well for themselves. Couldn't be more proud of them, honestly. When it's bringing them joy and happiness and abundance and all that sort of thing, it's great. However, what happens is sometimes they can begin to lean into that kind of, I am someone, I am the kind of, I don't know, the managing director of a company. I am head of this department. I am, leader in this aspect. And that can tip very easily into this kind of alpha ego structure of the masculine energy, where it believes it's better than anybody else. The divine masculine doesn't hold itself better than anybody else. It holds itself in a position whereby it is protecting everybody. It is loyal. It is strong. It doesn't need to be better than anybody else. It's humble. That's one of the most beautiful things for me about the masculine energy, is to when you see humility in a man, and you see them drop away all the ideas of what you should look like, what you should be like, how you act, how you come across, all that sort of stuff. And you let that go in the face of kind of, care, nurture maybe, and you just become really humble about life. And I've seen it when, we've like walking up mountains and stuff like that. And I've walked up with some male friends and I've just been killing myself trying to keep up with them, me leaning more into my masculine energy and failing, but them being kind of got to the top and just being like absolutely humbled by the view. It's not about what they've achieved. It's not about the long drive, the way we were all talking about getting up to the top, who was going to be there first, that kind of camaraderie, like a little bit kind of competitive, in a fun bantery type way. That would be kind of, the male, the masculine energy, the Shiva energy, really held in its force, when it's kind of, it's bringing everybody along with it. It's saying, come on, let's do this. We can do this together. Come on, let's go. I'm with you. You know, that is the masculine energy, that competitive, that drive, that focus, that kind of ability to get stuff done. That's the beauty of the masculine energy. And again, when you get to the top, it's not about achievement. It's not about a pat on the back. It's not about, look how wonderful and amazing I am. I've managed to scale this 5,000 meter high mountain. It's actually that awe when they get to the top of it, and they're just brought straight back down to earth by the beauty of like Mother Nature, you know, by the view that takes their breath away, and they're humbled and they let down all guards, and it's all about from the heart. You know, the way they describe what they're seeing, the fact that they literally take a breath in and can't necessarily say anything, or maybe it just be a wow, you know, that feeling. And similar, I think, actually, I saw my husband kind of express when I had my child, you know, when we had our middle daughter, and he was there for the birth. And he was so out of place, bless him. He was like a fish out of water for a long time. He didn't know what to do. And I don't think this is uncommon either. He didn't know what to do. He could see me in pain. He was completely helpless. It was all about kind of, oh, what am I supposed, you know, how can I help here? What am I? I'm just completely out of my league. And understandably, because, you know, even as a woman going through childbirth, believe me, it all becomes very internal. But when I turned and said to him, you have to hold me, he stood up, he took, you know, he just didn't care about anything, and he held me up. And it's just that being there, that strength. And I just was able to let go completely and really focus on what I was having to do in that time. And and when I think back now, because I'm not being funny, but, you know, pregnant women aren't light. You know, like, I'm only 5'2", well, 5'1" and 8 inches, but we're rounding it up. I'm only 5'2", and I'm, you know, not a massive build. And in pregnancy, I kind of was all baby, you know, I put on too much weight. I was all baby, massive, big old bump. I was not a lightweight. You know, when I was walking around, my feet were swelling up, my ankles were swelling up from the increase in weight as I was kind of gaining and progressing through my pregnancy. For him to have held me up for probably about 15, 20 minutes without one complaint, without one sigh, without one kind of look of, oh my God, is this ever going to end? Or not any that I caught anyway. You know, I don't know. Maybe there's a sly little to the doctor. I don't know. But anyway, you look at it, he held me up. He supported me. He was there for me. He was my rock. It's all those sorts of things. That is the divine masculine, just to a T. There's no ego involved. There's no, you know, oh, look at me, I'm holding my wife. You know, there's none of that. It wasn't about that. It was just about the pair of us being in the moment at that time. And I will never forget how he held me there, because I couldn't actually hold myself. My legs were going, my arms were going, you know, everything was kind of just exhausted by the, you know, the process of giving birth. So for him to hold me enabled me in terms of gravity, you know, enabled me to kind of be able to focus more with all the energy that was in my body, and not holding myself up, but just being able to push this little life out and get it out into the world and get the job done. You know, and that is the beauty again of the masculine energy. So I think, you know, it's hard. Like I don't want to kind of bring down anybody who's good at their job or anything like that, but it's always having that humility, you know, in whatever line of work you're in. It doesn't matter. Be humble. You know, we all started from somewhere. There's no need for this kind of idea that you're better than somebody else, or through any idea, you know. I think it's literally that with the alpha, you know, the alpha ego thing that goes on with men and women. And it can be not even just that it's expressed through the workplace. You know, women can very much stand in their kind of alpha male masculine energy, and they can be very dominant in the house. And we get this kind of, oh, you're under the thumb idea that, you know, the men can do no right. They're constantly criticized. And that, again, is a point of hierarchy. And it's there kind of, but it's in a bad way. You know, bringing people down is never a good thing. You know, bring people up. Don't bring people down. You know, we raise children. We don't belittle them. And it's the same thing with all of us. You know, raise people up. Give them what you can. Give them the energy to be able to believe in themselves. Always, always, through everything that you do. You know, don't criticize people directly. Constructively give them advice, give them reflections. Say back to them like what it is that you think that, really touched you and really connected with you. And that was fabulous. And then perhaps, it might have connected me with a little bit deeper if this had been mentioned, or perhaps doing that might just really begin to connect someone in on a deeper level, that sort of stuff. And it's all perhapses, it's all maybes, it's all just thoughts. Your thoughts are no more important than anybody else's, no matter where you are, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter where you come from, none of it. Really, in the grand scale of things, we're all equal. Doesn't matter what you've achieved or you haven't achieved in your life, we are all equal. We are all valuable. We are all needed to make this planet, this world function. We need to step into that reality a little bit more, and that will enable us to balance out the masculine energy a little bit. So, planning this meal, I'm thinking get creative. I'm thinking themes. I'm thinking really go deep into the planning of the meal. Okay, so this might be like, take you back to it takes me back anyway to my grandma. So she would go out shopping on the day that she was cooking for a big meal so that everything could be fresh. She would hand make everything from the bread. I mean, it's going to sound a bit like Come Dine With Me or something like that, isn't it, Master Chef? But it's still, that is really going into the feminine energy in so many ways, because you are providing for your community. You're holding the community sacred. You are looking at kind of putting love and effort into the environment that you're creating, the food that you're delivering, and the drinks. Steer away from alcohol if you don't feel like that's necessarily appropriate, or even like it's necessarily needed. Not every meal needs to have alcohol to it. If you're having a fun time anyway with costumes and themes and, I don't know, music, all that sort of thing, then you might not need the alcohol to kind of, loosen everybody up. Actually, just putting on that funny moustache and that dodgy hat, or a wig and a funny little dress and fake boobs or something like that, that really might be all the encouragement that your body needs to start having a laugh. And that's what we're really talking about. Laughter is amazing for the soul. Masculine, feminine energies, whatever. The laughter is joy made into sound. It's kind of personified by it. It rumbles in the very base chakra, and it comes up through all the chakras, and it comes out into the aura. It's a beautiful thing. And we recognize that. You can't, if someone's really laughing, the very least you can do is smile along with it, whether it's canned laughter on the TV, whether it's a little baby chuckling, whether it's the laughter of an old man, it doesn't matter really, whatever. Laughter is infectious. And rightly so. It's a really beautiful thing. It's an expression of joy. So if you kind of put yourself in that position where you've let down your guard, it's not about you being you anymore, no matter what kind of place you feel you hold in the world. Actually, when you put on a funny costume or something like that, you become just another idiot in a costume, and have fun with that. Don't take yourself seriously. The divine feminine is very much about laughter, joy, expression, creativity. Give it an accent, get some music, decorate the house, buy the food, make the food, whatever it is that you need to do to enable this to be the most resplendent expression of your feminine energy that you can. And really take mindfulness into it as well, so that you're very conscious, whatever you're doing it with your heart. You're leading with your heart, and you're providing for your community, for your friends, for your family, those people that are most dear to you. Kind of place that much onus on it, that it's all about self-expression and community and love, and drawing people in and making them feel loved and held and welcome and nurtured, so that, they can all drive home happily at the end of the night. Funny wigs on, big smiles on their face, real big warm hearts, lovely hugs at the door, all that sort of thing. It's a beautiful thing. And when it happens, and it does happen frequently, I know. So when it happens, it's a really joyous affair. If you haven't done that in a while, I encourage you to do it. I encourage you to open your house, and maybe do something as well, kind of challenge yourself a little bit more as well, to invite somebody that you wouldn't necessarily always invite. Don't make it easy pickings when you're inviting people over. Give yourself a challenge almost. Again, it's that humility, and it's that open-heartedness. It's that compassion that the feminine energy really expresses. It's offering the hand of friendship out to somebody, knowing that it might be rejected, and being vulnerable for yourself in that instance, but also hoping that it will be accepted, and bringing somebody else into the fold and extending that friendship out a little bit more. You know, it's a wonderful thing. And it's that community that really begins to build a sense of community out in the world. Because if someone's extended the hand of friendship out to you and you've accepted, you've gone with a faith and they've come with a vulnerability. And that begins to build real friendship, real connection, and vice versa. Okay, so that's something that you can do with your feminine energy. Now, to dip into the masculine energies. So masculine energies, talking about being focused, being results orientated, actually actioning stuff, logical thought, getting stuff done, being assertive, project minded, structured, linear in thought, which means you're kind of, you're getting from A to B. There's no fannying around in the meantime. Now, women are terrible at fannying around in the meantime. We will take every route possible, or the feminine energy, I should say. Sorry, I'm thinking of myself in honesty, because this is something that I've had to really train myself to do. And I recognize this as being a bit more feminine than masculine a couple of years ago when I was trying to kind of develop my business, and I was having to take myself out of my comfort zone of being a mum of 3 and a house, a housekeeper, whatever, homemaker, they call it, don't they? That's what I was basically doing, and having to go for my dream, which was to do what I'm doing now, which is to help, which was to serve, but to actually make money on it so that I could do these things. Because otherwise it was very much going to be about me having to get, any old job. I was at that station in my life. And I really had to bring this. It's very easy for me to lapse back into my feminine side and to, put house cleaning before getting jobs done that will effectively make me money. It's very easy for me to justify on very many levels why I shouldn't do it like that. I should do it like this. Why go from A to B clear cut when you can go A star, A star star, A star star star, B minus star, B star, we don't need to go there. You know what I mean? It's kind of not getting stuff done. It's fannying around, I call it, just messing about when you need to get something done, and anything else will come before it because you're procrastination. That's what it is. You're procrastinating on everything. And that is the feminine energy, again, in its shadow self. Okay. And that's when, if you have those sorts of things, you can really use the drive and the direction and the result focused energy of the masculine. Okay. And you can draw this up within yourself because you've always got that little voice that goes, we should really be doing something else. You should really be getting that done. You should really be. It's there. Same way as it is with the feminine energy. Like, cut that guy some slack. Geez, have a heart. You have these thoughts. If you allow them in, it's your intuition talking to you. Okay, it's yourself. It's your spiritual self inviting you to lean back into the opposite energy from the one that you're expressing at that time. Okay, so what I thought was a really good way of being able to express and build on your masculine energy to bring it up into its power was to set yourself, these are like the first ones I'm thinking, set yourself a weekly goal that must be achieved. Now, it can be anything. I mean, actually, what I thought would be quite nice about this was set yourself a weekly goal that is to be kind of, masculine orientated. So, for example, you would need to read a book, a scientific book, a factual book each week. Or you need to start one and have one finished every month, that sort of thing. Start yourself a weekly goal. So take time to think about something you really want to achieve. Set that vision in your mind. And this is where you can lean a little bit more in the feminine but don't take too long doing it. That's the key. Okay. Get into the feminine, you get creative with it. You look what it looks like. You look into what it looks like. You set that vision for yourself. And then you get really back into your masculine and you get factual about it. How am I going to get there? How am I going to get from where I am now to that goal that I want to achieve by the end of the week or 2 weeks or month, whatever, however it is, whatever you want to get done. This is when we lean into the masculine energy. Okay. So you're looking at what it is that you want to achieve and how you're going to get there. And you really need to take the emotion out of it. We're talking about logical steps of how to get from where you are now to your goal point. Take the emotion out. I don't want you to think about fear. I don't want you to think about, how it will look, won't that be lovely? None of that. Just factually how you're going to get there. Okay? Take out the lovely stuff and just go from A to B. Now, for some people, their minds will go, well, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I know exactly how I'm going to do it. Brilliant. Brilliant. You've engaged straight in with your masculine energy. Okay, so another question come in. So I would just like to raise that while we're onto it. Do you think that the actual desire of the feminine, the women, to bring their masculine energy into their lives is affecting the natural old school family dynamic which conflicts the child's upbringing, with the father taking more of the household role compared to the past where the mother took that role? Oh, what a great question. Thank you. So I think this is why this subject fascinates me so much about the masculine and the feminine energies, because I believe that we are all in a state now where we really need to look at ourselves and rebalance, because there are become real shifts in our nuclear families, in our extended families, in our communities, and across the world, as we know, and we're seeing all this. And I feel like as a species, we're really beginning to kind of feel into it a little bit. We're in that kind of change stage, right? Where we've recognized it. I talk often about the 5 points of change, where you recognize that something needs to change. You start moving into change. The change happens itself. You step into that change and you allow it to settle, and then you move on from the change. Okay, so those are my 5 points of change. This is I recognized in every point of my life where it's changed before. There's 5 parts to it. And so I think at the moment we're in this kind of second change. We've recognized that something needs to give. This is where the movement has kind of come from. Everybody feeling, fine, like, okay, something's not right here. Things are going wrong. We're seeing, so much destruction within our personal selves, within our physical selves, within our extended selves, i.e. the consciousness of the world, the way the world's operating, the political agendas, the big company agendas, all that sort of thing has gone crazy. And all of us, men and women alike are, saying we're not happy with this is right now. And so we're in the second part of this, I feel like, where women are beginning to say, well, hang on a minute, because you know what? I can do this too, and I can raise up. So the question that you're asking is whether or not the old school family dynamic conflicts the child's upbringing. Right. This is probably quite a deep subject. So I'm just going to speak from the heart on what I believe. Depending on whether you have male or female children, or you have a mixture of the both, you're probably going to lean into one way or another, because you're going to believe on a subliminal level, if you're a woman, that your son needs your male partner to be able to get a balanced view of what a man would look like, something to aspire to, that sort of thing. There have been books written about this, where boys go through certain developmental stages where they really gravitate towards other men. And so you as a woman may feel that your role within the family is lesser for your boys when they get to a certain age anyway, than your husband's, for example. We're talking old school, so I'm just going to go with the old school family dynamic. One of the things that I would bring to your attention with that is that as the mother of those boys, you are going to be the one woman in their lives that will always, always, always be there for them, will always project to them the way a woman should behave. The care that you receive from your mum is the sort of care that you try to emulate in your partner. That's the role of the woman in a fully male family, for example, is huge. And I think one of the things that's been happening through this kind of old school idea that mum stays at home, dad goes out to work when the kids are growing up, is that now that women are going out to work and they're not around too much, the kids are beginning to lean on both parents for emotional support. And it's the parents that need to deal with the kind of the dynamic in the family and how that's then given, because the mother and the father need to stand true in their divine femininity and their divine masculinity within their roles, okay? Which I mean by the woman in the house is still going to be predominantly the one that gives the cuddles, that makes the food and all that sort of thing in an old school family. The man is going to be the one who comes home, goes to work, fixes the car, does the gardening, all those sorts of roles, right? We're talking about that sort of family. As the roles begin to change, there needs to be a lot of communication about why it is that the paradigm that you feel like you're growing up with is not actually being demonstrated specifically within your family. And that comes from both parents being able to talk openly and honestly to their kids about the need for both men and women to connect it in with both sides and to be able to support one another equally going forward. So the woman is out at work. She's doing her shift. The guy's out at work. The husband's out at work. He's doing his shift. They're both coming home to the children. The children are looking and saying, okay, like mum's out at work, dad's out at work, like, okay, they're both out at work. Who's going to be doing this for me? Who's going to be doing that? How comes dad's doing the washing and the ironing? That's not a guy thing to do. Actually, it very much is. As you move out of the sphere of your family life and you move out of that protective bubble that you live in as a child, one of the first steps that you make as an independent person is to start doing things 100% for yourself. And that's from risk-taking, decision-making, to cooking, to ironing, to keeping the house nice. You need all of these skills to be a rounded, independent individual, irrespective of your gender, irrespective of how you present yourself to the world. You need those skills. You're actually doing your children a disservice if you don't empower them with those skills. Because what they're always going to feel is that they're always looking out for somebody else who can fulfill those roles because they can't do them themselves. They're not good enough. Again, it comes back to, most of the time, it does come back to that. Okay, so I think that I feel that by empowering your children, by opening a conversation, by being honest about the role changes that you're going through as a couple and as individuals, and by expressing and talking about where you've come from with your own personal history, you can really begin to open a conversation that is enlightened and enlightening, that is conscious, that reflects back to your children the fact that they have this kind of male and female energy dynamic to be able to draw on, that will empower them to go forward in life in many different roles. And you can talk about, as a mum, you can talk about how, you really felt like, it was such a wonderful place to be bringing up baby. But there was always this part of you that wanted to do more, that wanted to go out, that wanted to bring home some money, that wanted to feel that independence that you had when you were younger, because you would have felt all this independence. Because when you move out of home as a young woman, it's the same as moving out of home as a young man. Suddenly you're responsible for all these bills. You're responsible for looking after yourself. It's not just the cooking and the cleaning. It's making sure the mechanics done a good job on your car. It's paying all bills. It's, all those sorts of things that were before very gender specific within a household, but now have become just things that we need to do for ourselves. So take the old school paradigm of the male and the female, the mother and the father roles, and really begin to open them up now through conversation, and really begin to kind of, talk about it with your kids. Talk about it with young people. If you ever get the opportunity to speak to young people, talk to them and listen. This is one of the things that, we suggest about going into your feminine energy as well, is about listening. Okay. But I think that whether it conflicts the child's upbringing is all really about communication, because there's never any conflict if you lay the truth out. It becomes about actually explanation rather than conflict, rather about arguments, rather than about, not understanding anything. A conflict within you would be that kind of consistent dissonance where you're trying to make it work, but it's not working for you. You're trying to make it all align, and you're trying to get your mind and your belief system to tally into one, but it's not working for you. The minute a conversation like a dynamic conversation is opened up and questions are allowed to be asked and stories are told, you open up you really invite the children to learn, and you open up not just the opportunity to learn, but also you open up yourself and your self-experience. You open up the generations before you, the past, the history. You open up a possible future for them. You really give them the world through conversation, through learning, through being able to impart the wisdom. Again, why fight age when this is what you get, alongside it? Really begin to kind of show them that it's a positive, the way everything's moving, the way role changes are beginning to kind of come into a different dynamic now through relationships, and not just through relationships, through the workplace, through like other roles being open, predominantly male roles, for example, now being opened up to female roles, predominantly female roles being opened up to male roles. You know, I mean, some of the kind of the best nurses, for example, and a nurse used to be, when I was growing up in the 70s, you never found a nurse outfit for a boy. It was always nurse girls, you know, same as you would never find a fireman outfit for a little girl. It was all firemen. You know, that has changed, and that's changed for decades now. It's time to open up, start the conversation about it, empower the children for the future. Again, it's giving them the opportunity to believe that no matter what they want to express, there's an opportunity out there for them. There is tolerance, there is acceptance of this because the world's changing, and get them to embrace change, because, you know, change is happening every second of every day. It's just you probably don't psychologically focus on it a little bit more. You know, you don't take your mind space into that. Well, blimey, so much has changed in the last 3 minutes. You know, you don't necessarily do that. Usually you're kind of going through the motions of your day, get your stuff done, running around, whichever energy you're leaning into on that day. And I really believe in, you know, being able to speak to people and empower people and give them the opportunity to ask questions, and to open up more of a world for them to move out into where children are concerned. So I hope that's answered your question. Another question's come in. I'm loving this interaction. How would it work in same-sex relationships where the male-female role is not as clearly defined or sometimes not even existent? How would it work with the role model scenarios, and would it affect the development of the child from that point of view? Okay, so again, I'm going to speak from the heart because I'm in a intersex relationship. I'm married to my husband. It's got its own issues. I should imagine that being in a same-sex relationship, if you're not open and communicative about your needs and about the way you express yourself, first of all, you need to be looking at that, I think, because I believe that is how relationships grow and develop, is actually being honest with that person that loves you about who you are and about how you express yourself and the sorts of things that you're interested in. But if there is a highly kind of alpha beta relationship, if you like one person's really taking the lead with all that, and that's making you as the other person feel like you're on a back foot, then that's something that you need to address, irrespective of what relationship it's in. Okay, that could be a friend relationship. You need to address it. You're coming into your masculine energy, empowering yourself through your masculine energy by standing tall for yourself. You know, stand tall for yourself. You deserve it. You deserve to feel like your voice is heard. If the male roles and the female roles aren't as clearly defined, then you have the opportunity to be able to create whatever you want. You don't have the usual, or I say the usual, but the kind of the millennia of societal expectation to weigh you down. You have the opportunity to create whatever you want right now. You know, you really do. And especially within your own relationship, which should be a safe place, frankly. If it's not, and if you're feeling like, you know, that there's too much power one way or the other, then, you know, let's crack on with some of these things and start integrating those into your life and start really beginning to feel like you're balancing your energy, because essentially the only person that you'll ever be able to control in this sense is going to be you. And that's why it's important to have the conversations, because you need to be heard. You need to be able to express yourself. You need to speak your truth. And that comes through on both the masculine and the feminine energies. So speaking your truth would be coming from both parts of your energy. That really is embodying your divine self. When you speak out your truth, when you open yourself up to vulnerability and you speak from your heart and you are who you are, that is being divine. That is you standing true in your light and saying, here I am, this is me. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It doesn't matter really the response that you're going to get. You know, throw that fear away, because to really be integrally you and authentically you is the biggest gift you will ever give to yourself. It really is. To be able to just be who you are, irrespective of what people think, is, I believe, a fundamental human right. I really do. Like, you know, I mean, when we look across, again, millennia of torturous, horrible things that have been done to people with talent, to people who are expressing their sexual preference, the way they like to dress, I mean, the color of their hair, like, honestly, just allow people to be who they are. They have every right. The same way as, you want to be accepted and loved and able to express yourself. So does everybody else. Give that out to everybody else. Respect that want. And if you're in a relationship, I believe that actually one of the first things that would have attracted that other person to you in the first instance is that inclining of who that they really saw behind perhaps the facade that you put on in the first instance. And again, that you're talking about male, female, heterosexual, homosexual, transgender, non-binary, whatever. We all put up fronts initially to try to be accepted. We live in a world that tries to control the way we think and the way we project ourselves fundamentally for profit and power and money, greed. It all boils down to those horrible things, unfortunately. That's the world that we live in. However, we can change that by standing up for ourselves with every breath that we take, with every move that we make. I think that sounds like a song line, something like that. But, that's, you can do that. And you should be doing that. And then you should be empowering your children to do the same thing. So if you're in a same-sex relationship and you're bringing up children, make sure that the dynamic there is equal. Make sure you're not allowing the masculine energy in your partner to take control all the time. Take that balance back. Provide a united front for yourself, for your relationship, for them. Absolutely. And if you feel like it's leaning on one way or the other, then you're going to have that conversation. And, there's not, I suppose, the phrase that springs to mind is you're going to have to kind of man up, because it is that. It is standing tall in your truth and who you are and saying, this is who I am. And actually, by letting you do everything, for example, you're leaning more heavily into your feminine energy, letting you take control and letting you do everything actually makes me feel insecure, because you're taking away my ability to be able to manage my own life. Now, factually speaking, something should happen to your partner and you've let them do everything for your whole life, then not only are you going to miss that wonderful companion and that love and that tenderness and that intimacy that you had in that relationship, but you're also going to be absolutely dropped from a huge height down. I was going to use a swear word, but I'm not going to. But you're going to hit rock bottom with the fact that you've now got to learn about the world. You've got to be able to work in a world that's changed massively, because it always does, between the last time you took control of your life and now. And that person could be death. They could leave through just going, finding another person, any of these sorts of things. You need to be able to be independent. You need to be able to be yourself, activated on all different levels, to be able to be in a functional relationship. You can lean on people, sure, when you need to, but use your own 2 feet. Stand tall in yourself and be who you are and be a balanced version of you. And I think that also we all know when there's an imbalance. We all know if we're letting other people get away with, murder, because we're not standing tall and we're just picking up after them. I'm constantly having, should we say, discussions with my family about the fact that, I am not their slave. I am a mum, which means that I do think like mothery things. Like I will make sure that there's food in the house. That's the nurturing part. I will make sure that whenever they need a cuddle, I'm there. I will make sure that whenever they need an open ear and they want to cry on my shoulder, I'm there. I am not a skivvy. I am not a slave. I am not picking up laundry after everybody in my house, Picking up the laundry for my son, my 2 daughters and my husband is not on. And that's them taking the mickey out of me. And that's them kind of very much sitting back in the masculine energy and being all like, because the masculine energy really knows how to rest. I mean, that's another beautiful part of the masculine energy. Actually, it says, you know what? I deserve this, and it sits back. But it's not lazy. Masculine energy will take a rest where it's needed. It deserves rest. It needs rest. It's a very physical energy. But it's not lazy. It doesn't just sit there and let other people do the work for them. In fact, if it sees other people struggling, it will rush to help. It will get up. It will get going. and it will be the first to be out there. Okay, so that's like, again, one of the beautiful things about the masculine energy and how you can rise up in yourself. If you see that you're sitting around letting other people take and shoulder the majority of the work in your house, in your department at work, at your school, in your college, or wherever, in your friendships, if you can feel like, actually, my friend Sarah, for example, is always the one that reaches out to me. Is always the one that reaches out to me. And I feel like to bring the balance back into that relationship, I need to start coming to her, and I need to start being a bit more proactive. And it's not through malice or not wanting to see or not wanting to make the effort. It's just that I've slipped into that pattern whereby she's the one that comes to me and then I respond, and that doesn't really give her any sense of value in our friendship. She is constantly coming to me, constantly asking, constantly, it gives no sense of value to her. And I want her to feel valued because I genuinely think she's wonderful and she's my friend. It's that sort of, it's that balance. It's that being honest with yourself when you're looking at these two energies, and you think to yourself in every, it's about dissecting your life as well. You're looking at every single section, and there's like loads. You can't just kind of briefly go, okay, family, work, friends, love life. It's not like that. It's very much a subtle thing. It's on an independent basis, an individual basis. It's you looking at how you can be better, how you can change for the better, how you can develop yourself, how you can bring your conscious self into your waking world, into every moment of every day. You're going to feel amazing with these changes that you make, and you're going to see amazing differences as well. Because when you start to put in a little bit differently, when you do stick up for yourself, you'll find people listen. They might not like it, and maybe you have to go through the 5 points of change with them. But if you want to stand up for yourself and you think, actually, this is something that I've just been pushing down year after year or month after month or day after day, I've just been pushing these thought processes down, and they're like loud, loud voices in my head, and they're always there. And that is something that you need to deal with. That is not something that should be drowned out or, softened, deluded in any sort of way. That is yourself saying, hello, this needs to change. And you need to do it. You need to face it. Otherwise, they will keep on. And you will keep feeling lower and lower and lower because you're literally getting depressed by all the weight of you not standing up for yourself and doing anything. Okay? It's detrimental to our very natures, our very source, who we really are, our spiritual selves. Our spiritual selves is equal. Male, female energy. It's equal. There's no messing around with it. It is what it is. Okay? It needs to be felt wholly. Otherwise, you'll always be imbalanced. And with the imbalances come consequences. Look at the law of attraction. If you focus in on the negative, then that's what you'll see. And that's with everything. There is no escaping the law of attraction. It's one of those amazing things that you're kind of always a little bit kind of mindful of, because that if you eat too many cakes, you'll put on weight. That if you're an angry person, people will be angry and cross back at you. You know that because you've had those experiences. Okay? So I hope that's gone some way to answering that question. So getting back into the setting weekly goals. Set that vision in your mind. Don't get too floral with it. Don't get too creative. It's what you want to achieve. You know what it is. You're very definite about it. Then be definite about how you can get there. Take those points. Make 5, 6 points of something to get you to that point. And make them little steps initially so that it's not too scary, so that you're not moving out of your comfort zone almost immediately and then like falling back with overwhelm. Make them small steps that you can take, solid steps that you can take that will get you there. And this is very much moving into your masculine energy. This is very much linear thought. This is focus driven. It's all the masculine energy. And it's fabulous. And it will get you stuff done. It will get you places. It will make the dreams happen, this energy. Okay? So it's really worth spending a little bit of time in doing this. Okay. So coming back onto the feminine now. So we're looking at now focus on effect, leading from the heart, being able to practice forgiveness, compassion, acceptance, non-judgment. So this is something that men, I believe men and women should start doing on a daily basis, right? Just to be able to touch base with their feminine side. And this will probably throw a load of men right out their comfort zone, and probably a lot of women as well. In my experience, like when I've done this in retreat setting, it's invoked tears, it's invoked feelings of lack of self-worth, of guilt, all those sorts of things. So this is the things that we push down, you know, because we don't want to face them. So there's a little bit actually of masculine energy in this as well, but essentially the action of giving yourself self-love, which is what I'm talking about, is a devout, divine, feminine action. And I'm going to suggest to you aromatic dressing. Now this is something that I found out about a year ago, I suppose now, and I've been practicing it every day for about the last 6 or 7 months. Bringing routine into your life is a very masculine thing. Forgetting what you're doing within that routine is a very shadow masculine thing. Just getting stuff done is neither here nor there. It's neither masculine nor feminine. It's just not even living. It's just getting stuff done. It's not being present in anything. It's just kind of getting the job done. Okay. What I'm talking about is really moving from routine into ritual. And I want you to start with yourself in terms of self-acceptance. So this is a practice that I share on my retreats. What I want you to do is to be completely alone, undress completely, stand in front of a mirror, start at the very tip of your big toes, and take yourself in with your eyes slowly, focusing on every single part of yourself that you can see. So you start from your toes and you gradually move up, and you're looking in the mirror. So you're looking into a mirror image of you. You're looking into a projected mirror image. Okay. Now let's just focus on that for a second, because this will help you be kind with yourself. Okay. Every mirror projects a different version of you. Every single mirror. No two mirrors are exactly the same. They just can't be by the way they're produced. And I know that one mirror will show me one version of myself, another mirror will show me another. It's not even just about the construct of how mirrors are made. It's about the light, it's about angle, it's where the mirror's hung or stood, or, you know, whereabouts it is in relation to you, how you're feeling when you look at that projected impression of yourself in the glass. There's so many dynamics. It's not a real reflection. So just focus in on what you can see and try to recognize the small bits. Like this is why we move from the very, very tip of the toe, and we take one section of our body at a time, looking and loving. Okay, so as you look at yourself, you're really going to love yourself, and that's what we're practicing here. Okay, so this is the first part of this aromatic dressing self-love ritual. You begin to look at yourself. You look at your toes, you look at your feet, you look at your ankles. You bring your vision up, you look at your calves, your shins. You bring your vision up to your knees, up into your thighs, up into your genital area. Take all of it in. Absorb it all. Try not to think anything at this time, okay? And if negative thoughts come in, then take them away by putting in positive thoughts. So allow the negative thoughts to come in, and then reintroduce positive thoughts in their place. So for example, I would look at myself and I get all the way up to my belly and I'm like, oh God, still got that third tire, you know, that tire all the way around my hips, round my waist, just underneath my belly button, that kind of gut that kind of just hangs down. It's got its own little crease. And I can't tell you how many times I've looked at it and thought, oh, muffin top, you know, something you're not supposed to have. A positive reflection on that for me is always that belly that held the things that are most precious to me, that amazing part of me that extended, contracted, not just with my children, but with all the big fat meals that I ate along the way when I was really enjoying myself, and I just kept putting in, you know, whether it be drink or food or whatever. Whenever you indulge, you're constantly putting in, right? And that stomach down there is holding that. That stomach is also holding sadness and a feeling that I'm not good enough for something. That's where we hold our emotions, around the hip area. I know that. I recognize that. I've done work on that. So I know all these things. There's still that voice that goes, oh, muffin top, will it ever go? And then comes in the other voice that says, but you know what I mean? Was it worth it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Would I change anything? Would I change the times when I've just given myself that chocolate bar or that cream cake? Would I change my 3 beautiful children, the wonderful family that I've co-created? Would I change that? Would I change my pregnancies that I loved and I enjoyed? Would I change any of that? Because that's also what that stomach represents to me. So think about what part of your body that you get to and you just think, "Ooh," or you have a really critical thought about it, you know, and try to think about a positive thought that you can put in when you get to it. Because I want you to start changing your mindset. And instead of just taking out the negative, let's overpower it with the positive. Let's let the love rush over the negative and completely wash it away eventually. Because the more times you say these amazing things to yourself, the less option that negative voice has to come in and speak its mind. And it's negativity is so useless to us, really. There's fear, and that fear has its place and that sort of thing, but negative self-thought, self-doubt, lack of worth, all those sorts of things, they don't serve us. Let go of it. They don't serve us. Feeling fabulous, looking at yourself and saying you are fabulous and meaning it from the heart will take you into every corner of the globe as a confident person. And when you're confident, you're happy because you're able to enjoy the experience around you. When you can kind of emulate that happiness, then you can begin to share it with other people. And suddenly it's the whole environment that becomes nice around you because of the positive self-thoughts that you're giving yourself daily. So do that when you get to that, get to that point where you're used to those negative voices coming in, those critical voices, and there won't be just one, there'll be loads. Once you start to get to a certain point in your body, maybe you like your feet and you're happy there, or maybe you start with your feet, who knows? But you start and you move yourself gradually up and up and up until you get to your eyes. Okay, so the eyes become, so you've done your hair, you've done your face, your forehead, all that sort of thing. You've done your ears, you've done your eyes, your nose, your lips, your teeth, you've gone everywhere, right? And you've really looked at yourself for the physical entity that you are. Then you look in the eyes, okay? And you accept what you see because you will have gone through a lot in that process. I've had a lot of clients say, they really cried. They held themselves. They felt like they'd never really looked at themselves before. Not even one woman that I spoke to, she said, I don't think I've actually looked at myself properly in 60 odd years. Imagine not really looking at your body, the thing that you spend every waking moment in. Every second of every day, you're inside this beautiful biological representation. And that's what it is. It's a representation of everything, of your genes, of your lifestyle, of the way you choose to express yourself, of so many parts of yourself. So look at yourself, accept and love yourself, let go of the criticism, bring in the love. It really is empowering. And yeah, there might be some tears as you begin to let go of some of that self-doubt and that self-loathing that you've carried around with you. But be strong enough to be able to let go of that negativity and empower yourself with the positive stuff. Okay, that's the first part. That's quite deep. The second part is bringing action into it. So it's touch. Now I've started doing this with essential oils. Literally, I would say I'm addicted to this practice. And again, you start with the toes. And I put on different essential oils depending on what day, how I'm feeling, all this sort of stuff. One of the blends that I like to use is a doTERRA blend called Balance. And that's almost, I would say I use that regularly every 2 or 3 days in a week. I would say I use that because I just feel like it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's the name, maybe it's the smell, it's quite earthy, it's quite grounded, but it really sets me up for the day. I love it. And so I will start from the very tips of my toes, pour a big bit of coconut oil, sesame oil, rapeseed oil, olive oil even, if it's not too pungent, any of those oils, ones that are really you're drawn to. Okay, if you have any doubts, then I suggest looking into Ayurveda because that can really help you with the type of oil you might want to use due to the person that you are. So for example, if you're quite a hot-headed person, it would be nice for you to use like a coconut oil. Coconut oil is a very calming oil. If you're quite flighty and like an air sign or a water sign, then something warming like a sesame oil, or yeah, like a rapeseed oil, something like that, that's quite warming, that's quite a thick oil, that would be lovely on your skin. And pure oils I'm talking about. I'm not talking about cooking oils. Don't lather yourself up with sesame oil from, from the local store or something. It's too pungent, and it's probably had some chemical implement put in it. This is about self-love and self-belief, and really beginning to put into yourself. So spend a little bit of money on your oils. I highly recommend it. You won't ever doubt anything then, and you're not, that way you are putting into your body rather than just putting more and more chemicals on your body. Anyway, start with the toes and work your way up in lifting motions and circular motions. And then again, this is all about the masculine and feminine energy. So your lifting motion is very much that supportive, that kind of taking them, that strong motion that comes up your body. And then the circular motion would be like the creative force of the feminine energy. So the lifting up would be the masculine, and the circular rotatory movement of your hands would be like the feminine. So that way you're really beginning to embody both the energies into this act of self-love. And as you come up, begin to kind of really feel your body. So we're not just slapping this stuff on. We're getting into all the nooks and crannies. It's between your toes. It's around your nails. Really bringing mindful practice into this. You're coming up the length of your legs, rotating around the knees, bringing up the length of the legs and rubbing around the front, around the back in circular motions. You're also coming up and into the inner thigh area around the genitals. Be careful around the genitals, especially if you're using an essential oil alongside your carrier oil. Please, err on the side of caution, and learn about the oils before you use them, unless you've been recommended one or something like that. So again, you're coming up towards your stomach, you're coming up towards those areas that you are perhaps not so confident in, or you hold, grievance against, that sort of thing. For me, like, we'll go with my stomach thing. And I get to that point and I stop and I look at it, and I look at every inch of it as I gently rub and caress and rub the oils in, and I just literally send love out through my hands. Now, it sounds a bit crazy, but it's that healing touch of yourself. Whenever you hurt yourself, what's the first thing that you do? You touch it in some way. Or, if you've hurt your finger, you suck it. That's something that we do from being tiny little kids. That's our first instinctual thing, is to just touch it. Take the energy from our hands and touch it onto our body. Oh, I've hurt my shoulder. I've really hurt my shoulder. Oh, my neck's really hurting. And you don't do that because you believe that actually by just stretching out your neck, it's going to help somehow. I mean, it might do it. You might have kind of got down a little bit of self-massage that, is handheld. But at the end of the day, you are looking straight away for that involuntary reflex of touching onto your arms, touching onto your legs, using the energy from your hands and placing it on that area of hurt. You're doing so. It's the same principle when we're rubbing in around those areas that we don't like. So you're stopping, you're looking directly at it, and you're really rubbing in and massaging and sending a lot of love, a lot of forgiveness, all those positive thoughts through your hands and into that place, and then carry on up your body. And it's under the armpits, it's between the fingers, it's around the front of the neck, it's around the back of the neck. If you're feeling really, really into it, then you get somebody to do your back as well. Get somebody who loves you to do your back, and explain to them the importance of it. Say to them, look, I've been doing kind of, a little bit of like self-massage or aromatic healing, aromatic dressing, whatever you want to call it. And I just need to reach this part of it right back. Would you just mind doing that for me? And, and the fact that they'll do that for you is an act of servitude, an act of love. So then you kind of get that on your back as well, without having to kind of crane into a million different positions or miss it out. So ask for that as well. Okay, so aromatic dressing. I'm a big fan. I do this every morning, like, just to give you some perspective. Every morning I get out of my shower, dry myself off, and I start with my dressing, and then I kind of walk around letting the oils go in. It only takes about 5 minutes. Letting the oils go in while I kind of brush my teeth or do my hair or whatever I want to do, put my face on, whatever I'm doing. And it's just a lovely way to start your day, where you just send yourself love, You begin to stimulate the circulation of the body as well with the massage, with the oils, that sort of thing. And you're really kind of nurturing yourself, taking the routine of showering and dressing into a whole act of self-love and preparation for the day. Okay, just think of it like that. Okay, going back into the masculine energy now. Independent, hierarchical, structure, assertiveness, consciousness. So when we're leaning into this from a more feminine aspect, one of the things that I thought would be really empowering and something that I've suggested to my girlfriends that they do, and some of them have just said quite happily, yeah, I do that already. And the others have just been like abhorrent about it. Like, you do what? Absolutely disbelief that you would do this. And it's a very, very simple one, is take yourself out for a coffee, for a lunch, for a dinner on your own, 100% on your own. Say to yourself, you're going to be out there for an hour. You don't take your phone because that's cheating. That's technically having the whole universe in the palm of your hand. Okay. It's like, or the whole universe, but you know what I mean. The conscious collective in your hand. You're not alone. But when you take yourself out and you put yourself in a situation that is ordinarily communal, to drink, to eat, that break fast type thing is very much a community thing that we try to do. Often when you go into coffee shops, there are very few people sitting alone. The majority of people are sitting in couples or groups. And this is something that you can do to lean into your masculine energy, just like a small step that you can begin to try. And if I was you, I would start with a coffee. I would start with a coffee, and you're just going to basically go into a coffee shop. You're going to sit there at a table on your own with no distraction apart from your coffee. You're not going to look into your coffee the whole time. You're going to actually hold your coffee and look out into the big wide world and just look at what's going on. Assess. Okay? So assessment, not judgment or criticism. Assessment is a masculine energy. Judgment, criticism, arrogance, that's the shadow masculine. But to just be able to sit around and assess. So you're looking at somebody on the table opposite you, for example, and you can see it's maybe a mother and child and two children. And you're looking at the situation and you can see this mum is absolutely worn out with struggling with one child, where the other child, she's quite happily feeding with a spoon, or they're getting home with their hot chocolate or whatever, but it's the other child that's really kind of got all of her focus, got all of her attention, and it's because they're behaving badly. Have that conversation in your mind. Look at things and assess them. Then move on to the next person. Don't be judgmental. Don't be critical. We all have those days. We all have those children, like where one's preferential than the other because they're just of the way that they're behaving right in that moment. So, allow that as well. Recognize and be compassionate. So as you're assessing, lean a little bit into the feminine and recognize and be compassionate that people are kind of going through a lot of different things in their lives. And just because you're going through one thing in that day doesn't mean to say they're going to be doing the same thing. But go through everybody in the coffee shop, just doing that. And then allow yourself like a maximum of, 20 seconds to do it on each group. And once you've done that and you've assessed the situation and you feel like you know where you are, then you can kind of just sit and relax and drink and let your mind wander and allow the rest again. Give yourself permission to rest. You've assessed your situation from a masculine point of view. You know where you are. You know the exits, the entrances. You might know the kind of the danger points. You might have looked at that child with the coffee and thought, my God, any minute now she's just going to pour it all over mum or all over me, one of the two. And you've assessed what's going to happen in that situation, and you feel like you might be kind of ready to handle it should it arise. And then you're going to just kind of look out and you're going to be, and you're going to rest in that place. And like I say, start with a coffee because it's quicker and it's easier. And if you get to the point where you're feeling really uncomfortable or a little bit of a loner or something like that, try to take a few deep breaths and work through that. But if it becomes unmanageable, then move out. Next time you start, just try it for an extra 5 minutes more, something like that. Just build up and into it, It's not something necessarily that you can change overnight, but this is stuff that you can begin to do to empower yourself and to recognize and to spend time with yourself as well, Like you'll be alone for the majority of that with your thoughts. You'll be able to recognize if your thoughts are critical. As you allow all those thought processes to happen, it will become quite apparent to you if you're criticizing everybody, if you're looking at everybody, oh my God, imagine that, she looks nice. You're judging the whole time. Try not to judge. Try to just let people be the same way as you try to let yourself just be happy and in contentment. Okay. So next thing, moving on from that, so being an assertive, empowered, because the thing is, you get to lunch, you get to dinner, they take a bit longer, and then it's, again, if you have a problem with your dinner or your lunch or anything like that, then you've got the opportunity to be able to stand up for yourself. I'm sorry, but this has arrived and it's cold. That is not something that the shadow feminine would do. The shadow feminine would be very much like, oh no, I just eat it. I don't want to cause a fuss. The assertive, direct, action-taking, divine masculine, very calmly, no need to create a scene, excuse me, is just saying to them, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry to complain, but this food's arrived cold. If you just touch the side of the plate, I think you'll know what I mean. And as much as, I could probably eat cold food, I'd really prefer not to. Something kind, something humble. You recognize that this person is neither above or below you. You're just chatting to them as you would like, anybody else. And yet you're being firm. You're being assertive. You're saying, I'm not willing to stand for this. I'm not willing to take this one, and so you're leaning into your masculine energy. Okay, next, to the other side. Into the feminine energy. So open, heart-led, intuitive, interdependent, random. Interesting one. Relationships being circles, swirls, I've written down. I think that's because of this whole kind of, when I was reading this piece, I got the idea that it's all creative energy. It's that sort of thing. It's random, it's creative, it's movement in itself. And I think leading on very well from that lovely physical description that I've given is the one thing that I believe we should all be doing a lot more of in our lives, which is to dance. Dancing is an amazing way of connecting in with your divine feminine energy. And in fact, I have a tattoo on the back of myself, which represents the divine feminine in the form of an apsara. And she is a dancing deity in Apsara. I got the picture from the bas reliefs in Cambodia around Angkor Wat. And she's a dancing deity. So she is a goddess who dances, and she's expressive and she's open and she's naked from the waist up. She's free. She's beautiful in her splendor. She's beautiful in her femininity. Excuse me. And dancing is one of those things that I think is gradually being left behind. We're all very appreciative of good dancing. We'll all tune in to Strictly Come Dancing, or we'll watch dancing on television or on music videos or on stage or on the street even, and we're all like, wow. But to do it for ourselves, it feels like we've lost that primal ability, if you like, because I do believe it's primal as well. When you dance and you let go, you let all the energy go, you move all the muscles in your body, you're fluid. You are at one with the energy that runs through your body and the energy that runs through the world. And so dancing, I think, is a huge thing that you could practice to really lean into your feminine self. Now, dancing is not kind of it can start as that, but I really want you to think about moving every part of your body. So you're moving your toes, you're moving your feet, you're moving your ankles, you're moving your knees, you're moving your hips, you're moving from your waist, you're moving your chest, you move your arms, your shoulders, your neck, your head, your eyes. Your face is kind of undulating as well with the passion and the flow. Dancing is very sensual. You're feeling into it. And there's nothing more enjoyable, I don't think, than getting a good dance partner and moving together, moving, connecting that energy in together and moving together. So this would be a lovely one to practice with a partner so that you're both beginning to lean into this feminine energy. And then if you're with your husband or your significant other or whatever, taking it in turns to lead, taking it in turns to go into the masculine side, being the dominant force and leading in the dance, however you're dancing. It's kind of a very flowing movement. It allows you to integrate and feel the creative art of music, which again is very devoutly feminine. It allows you to respond to beats, to rhythms, to sounds, which are real, again, primordial creative sources. And if you close your eyes, I mean, there are some amazing Osho meditations for this, I have to tell you, like moving meditations to amazing music. But for example, one of the things that I've been exploring in my own moving meditations is what I call concrete feet dancing, which means you keep your feet completely still, but you move every other part of you to different types of music. So I do this with my kids yoga, and they're not allowed to move their feet off the mat, but they have to dance to all different types of music. So we'll have like African music, we'll have South American music, there'll be Chinese music, there'll be Celtic music, traditional English music. I'm sourcing it from all over the world. The Russian Cossack sort of dancing, which gets really, really fast paced as it goes on. Where else have I used? Oh, Indian, of course, Indian, Bollywood, that sort of thing, all that expression. And then pop music as well. I use pop culture, rap music, song, indie, rock, all different genres, and allow the body to move to whatever. And you'll find that you resonate very easily with some sorts of music. You probably already know what they are right now. You can probably say to me, no, I love South American music. I can't not move to that. That's definitely me. That and African music, I can't stay still. It's that, I think it's a drum thing. I don't know what it is, but it just stirs something really kind of primitive in me that I have to move. I can't just sit there and listen. It's too much. Something has to go. A knee has to pop. The shoulder has to go. The head, something has to start moving. I can't stay still. So that's really kind of, a way that you can really embrace the feminine and embrace your creativity. And then I invite you to do this on your own, or to do it out in public. I mean, obviously better in public because you just kind of throw that air of caution and control away, which is fabulous. But if you're nervous about it, if you're a little bit self-conscious about it and you're feeling into it, then start in your own home with nobody listening, with the music turned up or in headphones, however you feel most comfortable. And start with your feet firmly grounded into the floor, and see if you can just begin to move from your hips and move from your shoulders, and start that moving first. And if it feels like it needs to come from your knees, start that moving, and just feel into it. Feel the movement coming as the music plays, and feel the movement of your, feel how your body wants to express itself. Really feel into your body. That is divine feminine feeling, letting those emotions express themselves, letting that joy or that primordial passion or that excitement or that, I don't know, that relaxation even. If you think about kind of Zen music, there's that nice relaxing sort of slow music that just invites you to kind of open up and relax and let go. And movement might not then be particularly big. Movement might be very, very subtle because it's subtle with the nuances of the music. But that's you dancing, and that's expression, and that's creative expression, and that's not giving a damn what anybody thinks. And that's allowing yourself, again, to just be right here, right now, in that moment. Fabulous gift, and fabulous for yourself. You'll feel fabulous doing it. And then you can bring dance into anything. I dance around with my Hoover. I think I've said that before. I dance around with my Hoover. I plug myself in and I Hoover around and I'm dancing around. And if I need to stop and sing, I stop and sing. And if I need to stop and dance, I stop and dance. Have that freedom in your life. Give yourself that opportunity to embrace fun and creativity and bring it into your life every day. So one of the next things for masculine, this independence, this assertiveness, the focus on intent and action. Again, hierarchical way of thinking, structure, direction, speaking, is standing up for yourself. Now, I touched on this earlier when we were talking about the dynamic within relationships and about talking to children and about communicating. Standing up for yourself without aggression, but firm and sure and positive about what you're saying and what it is that you want, and having that kind of, that assertive drive really is super important to be able to get your voice heard and to be able to give you and the people around you a good reflection of your own self-worth. Okay? If you let people talk over you, talk down to you, cut you off in the middle of a sentence, that sort of thing, there is an area of compassion to it. I understand that. Like sometimes it's just, you're going to give that to somebody else because you feel like maybe they need it, and if you're erring into compassion, that's fine because you're doing it for somebody else. But don't do it every time, especially if it's the same person that's doing it all the time. Recognize the patterns, be a bit smarter, and stand up for yourself. It's not always easy. We seem to be so afraid of confrontation these days because of, the influx of knife crime and stuff like that. Maybe start with relationships that you're safe in. Start with friendships, start with your relationship, start with parental relationships, that sort of thing. But stand up for yourself. And again, you don't have to be aggressive about it. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be hateful. You don't have to be venomous. You don't have to do any of those things which are from the dark side of both the energies. You just have to be honest, authentic, and true. Speaking your mind, okay? And saying, no, hang on a minute. You know, it's a little bit like me with all the washing and everything, right? It's like, no, I'm sorry, guys. I am not your slave. I am not your washerwoman. Pick these clothes up, put them in the wash basket. That's all I ask. You know, it's not rocket science. You know, it's kind of like, but it is keeping that patience with them, because you're empowering them as well. You're teaching them. You're allowing them to learn. You're encouraging and facilitating that learning process. So do recognize it as being that as well, because you have to be able to stand up for yourself and yet empower the people to see you in that same light at the same time. Otherwise, it fades away. There's no point going, no, I'm not doing that, and then not just having any clout behind you, you know, or not having any reason for not doing it. I'm just going to sit a bit more comfortably. So, you know, again, feel into a situation, empower yourself. Don't talk quietly when you're speaking up for yourself. Don't shout when you're speaking up for yourself. Just speak clearly. Wait for a gap. Wait for there to be a point of silence or quiet where you know you will be heard. Again, nothing more depreciating than trying to speak your truth and somebody's talks over and you just sort of end up going into yourself. You know, I mean, come on. If we're going to do this, let's do it properly. Wait for a gap. Wait for the time when you can say, right, I'm sorry about this, but, you know, or no, do you know what? Scrap that. I'm sorry about this. No, don't apologize for standing up for yourself. That would be, again, shadow feminine. See how that slipped in? See how that slipped in? It's easily done. What you want to be doing, I think, really is addressing a situation. That might not be a worthwhile address if someone's in the middle of a row or in the middle of an argument or super, super angry. You will probably find that you've got more ability to change your situation, that you will become more empowered by allowing that situation to calm and then speaking your truth after that. So you've allowed everything to die down. The emotion's gone out, okay? You know, highly emotive men and women leaning into their feminine again, you know, and allowing that to overexpress, okay? So let that kind of calm down a little bit. Let the emotion just subside a little bit and then have your say, you know, that my thoughts on this matter would be, I need to talk to you about something that's been bothering me for a while. I hope you'll be open to it. Something's been really boiling away inside of me, and I need to tell you how I feel. I feel like now might be a good time to bring up the fact that I don't have the time or the energy to be able to do this anymore for everybody. Would you help me? Now, there's a very big difference there, because you've come in with the masculine, you're asserting yourself, and then the feminine asking for help. Both of them in your divine right. So saying, for example, me recently, my workload has really, really increased quite quickly, quite suddenly, and I've had to turn to my husband and say, look, whereas before I was able to do this, 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 and this, and this, and they were like, you know, it was fine because I had the time to do it, so I'm doing it. It's all good. We're working together. He's, you know, got a lot on his plate, and I'm trying to support him through that by taking offload. But this last couple of weeks, I've had to say to him, you know, love, I can't keep going at this speed. I can't keep doing what I'm doing for the family. I need help. I need support. And between us, we've come to a point where we're now sharing the workload, but not just sharing it. We've actually, this is my favorite bit about the whole thing, actually, we've actually begun to disperse the workload out into the family. So my son's now doing stuff. My daughters are now doing stuff. They're all becoming much more aware, much more empowered. They're developing their independence. They're developing life skills. And actually, I'm loving it. So from going from kind of asking for help and feeling like, oh, God, no, like, honestly, shouldn't I be able to do it all? These are the thoughts that go through my mind. Shouldn't I be able to do it all? You know, why don't I just ask for those sorts of things? You know, I need help. I need help. I need help. I'm crumbling. Going from all that to, right, I'm asking for help. Okay, babe, I can't do this anymore. Can we do this? To actually now looking at my children and feeling like, wow, they've done a really good job at that. That's been brilliant. Like my son's mowing the lawn skills have come on leaps and bounds. That wasn't something I was doing, but that's something my husband's picked up from me, and he's outsourced his responsibility to his son, or to our son. And it's working like that. So as a family dynamic, we're really beginning to move together and support one another. We're coming to that stage because they're all growing up. My youngest will be 7 on Friday. So they're all growing up and they're all beginning to come into their own. And it's at this time that I invite them to look at the masculine and feminine energies that we all have and begin to recognize that they need to be building a solid foundation for their lives on both. Recognizing that they're nurturing, recognizing they're looking after, the cooking and the cleaning and all that sort of thing, recognizing that they're going to have to go out and bring in some money, really begin to kind of look after, provide, first of all for themselves, but ultimately also for their family. But there's always going to be discussions like we've just had as parents in front of them, which have been about like, I need help. And not that not being a weakness, that's not something that they can criticize. Okay, what can I do? That was how my husband responded to me. Okay, what can I do? Fabulous. And be that person for your other half if they ever come to you like that, or to your friend, or to your child, or to your colleague, or anybody. If they ever come and open up and say, can you just help me with this? And it's a real, it's not a kind of just offloading. It's actually, can you help me? And from your relationship with them that it would have taken a lot. Let me tell you how wonderful it feels when absolutely, what can I help you with? And just downplay it like, yeah, I'm here for you at any time. It's a lovely feeling. It made me feel so special. Seriously, it was lush. So you've gone into, standing up for yourself. And again, this is something that you can do in relationships, friendships. I would certainly suggest looking at your relationships and at your friendships as well, and just making sure that you feel like there's a real balance there, and begin to work on that. If you don't feel like there's a balance there, then this is the perfect opportunity for you to perhaps stand up for yourself and say, hi, remember me? Like my friend Sarah would probably do to me. I'm the one that's always calling you, or calling you. You never call me. What's that all about? You know, um, I've instigated that belief. I'm just going to call her now after this. So stand up for yourself. If someone's taking advantage of you, call them out on it. If gender roles have you thinking badly of your partner, call that out as well. Explain to them how you're feeling. You're sick and tired of being the one that's always doing the washing, or you're sick and tired of it all being on you about bringing the money in. Like you're spending all your time at home, you're doing all this stuff with the kids. I get it. But is there any way that you could get perhaps a part-time job and take the pressure off a little bit? We're moving in that sort of world these days. It's about communication essentially as well, moving within relationships. Communicate, ask for help, reflect back how you're feeling. And then it's growth for everybody. You don't leave anybody behind. You don't get left behind. It's constant growth together. And that's what you want out of a relationship. If you're putting in time, you're putting in effort, you want to be able to grow with that person, whether it be friendship, a family relationship, a relation, an intimate relationship, a relationship with your children, with a co-worker, whatever. You want to be able to move forward together. Okay? Right, quickly going into the feminine again, spending quality time listening to friends or family and placing the focus solely on them from babies to grandparents. Okay, so this is it leaning into like integrating collective behavior, whole focus on effects, values, heart, speaking from the heart and your relationships. So it's really, really important to give people a sense of importance, especially when they're talking. The skill of listening, and it really is a skill, because it's about clearing your mind and focusing in on one thing, can actually be kind of meditative. You'll get a lot from it. You'll learn a lot from it. It gives you a lot of space to kind of think about what it is that you're taking in, to be able to reach into your energy and into the energy of the person that you're communicating with, to really begin to kind of develop a bond between you where you're listening, you're giving something to somebody by listening, you're giving your time, you're giving your energy. It's really important to listen, and you can learn so much. There's so much of this going on. But if you wait and stop and listen to somebody, they tell you everything that you need to know normally. When you're listening to somebody upset, they'll talk themselves into giving you a full explanation of exactly why they're upset. And listen, give them that. Support them in that way. It's a wonderful way of nurturing relationships, of growing your relationship, again, full divine feminine stuff. So if you feel like actually your relationships are beginning to suffer, you don't feel like you're close to anybody anymore, your friends seem like a distant memory, you look back on the past, you think, God, we used to be so close, what's happened? Now's the time to phone them up and listen to them. Now's the time to open up a conversation that invites them to be honest and that invites you to be honest. And that would be, again, much more divine feminine, moving into that divine feminine aspect of yourself, really nurturing, developing community, relationships, love, speaking from the heart, that authenticity again. And then something else to do with the masculine energy, expressing independence, asserting a strong, fear-facing, focus on intent, challenge yourself to do something you've been worried about or something that you'd never normally do. So this can be something as easy as just like reading a science book or something like that, or a comic or something, challenge yourself to do it and find the interest in it, apart from anything else. Okay, I've got another question coming in from the chat. How would you raise that if your male-female energy is not in a good place and you're afraid to bring it up in case of conflict popping up? I think the question refers to bringing up of something into a relationship. So if you're talking about how you would bring up something that you've been suppressing, this is a hard one because this is going to depend on what it is that you're putting down. My number one piece of advice to most people is to get clear in your mind exactly what it is that's triggering you, and don't go into a place of conflict and bring that up. Take it into a place where you're in a nice loving situation and then bring it up. You try and have the control. If in my experience, when I've been in the middle of an argument and I try and throw something out that's the truth, that's my truth, it gets ignored over the emotion of everything. This is kind of been my experience with most of my relationships, is if I speak my truth in the heightened emotion of an argument, or when a conflict is at its, kind of most verbal or most vocal, I think you run the risk of losing the power behind the vulnerability that you're sharing. And you are sharing vulnerability when you're being open and honest and speaking from your heart and saying, I need something to change. You're asking them to be vulnerable and you're being vulnerable at the same time. So try and pick your moment would be my first piece of advice for sure, especially if you really want to be heard. Second of all, it's important not to use language that is going to conflict or is going to raise conflict within them, i.e. trigger language. Okay, so when you're in a relationship, you'll know what buttons to press with your other half that are going to kind of begin to raise a sense of defensiveness in them. You'll see the arms get crossed, the head will go onto one side as they suss you out and work out if you're picking an argument, if you're really trying to do this consciously, or whether they're interpreting this the wrong way. It's that initial thing, right? So one way that you can deal with talking about, perhaps if you are feeling like you're leaning too heavily into your feminine energy, you want to bring out the masculine, is saying, I've been feeling really imbalanced recently. Okay, so you're bringing it into you and you're bringing it into your feelings. Babe, I've been feeling really imbalanced recently, and I've been really looking into that, working out what it is that's making me feel like, I don't know, just a bit on edge. Yeah, I don't feel really that sort of, I don't know, just secure, safe. I feel like something's sort of changing within me. And as I was looking at it, I was recognizing that the way that I'm constantly, I don't know, I'm going to go on an example of being in the feminine because I feel like the majority of us, women, for example, would live more in the feminine, the shadow feminine. And I've talked perhaps from a place from experience here as well. So I'm sharing my experience as well. I hope this is relevant. But I would probably then go in with I'm feeling like the fact that it seems to be always me that's picking up after the kids. It's always me that's doing the shopping. It's always me that is kind of in this, gender compliant role of being the little wife at home, that sort of thing. And I don't know, it's just making me feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's making me feel like, with all the work that I'm doing and all the extra money that I'm bringing in and the way that I'm kind of managing all this stuff, but getting more and more depleted and not really having any time for me to rest, just doesn't feel like I don't know, I guess I just feel like there's a real imbalance at the moment. Can you see that? Do you know where I'm coming from? Can you recognize that at any stage? Now, obviously, the reaction is going to be very dependent on the space that you've picked to share your vulnerability and your change point, your crux of change. It's also going to be about the person that you're talking to very much, and how they feel challenged by what they read into what you've just said. All right, so be prepared to take a deep breath and start again and try and explain 2 or 3, 4 times maybe, um, and honestly, I wish you luck, because not that I think it's about luck, but sometimes it's about the moment that you pick. And depending on the day that that person's had, they could either feel challenged by that, or they could feel like, oh, do you know, I need to fix it. And that's another thing, is like the masculine energy, it wants to fix everything. The shadow masculineness is the divine masculine holds space for the fixing, if you like, for that person to go in and fix themselves. It's loyal, it's protective, it's strong, it will hold that space. But the shadow masculine wants to take control, and it's ego driven, and it wants to reestablish a hierarchy within the relationship. So it wants to fix. It wants to kind of rub it all better, because it doesn't really know how, because it's the masculine, not the feminine. It's kind of that ironic depreciation of the energies, of both energies at the same time. And so, it might be a conversation that you might need to bring up a couple of times, and you might need to adjust it. I always find that saying, this is making me feel a certain way, and talking about imbalance. When I feel like something needs to give, I often go back into imbalance. It's something that I feel my husband and I have talked about on so many levels, in kind of obtuse situations, ones that they're really meaningless. But it's just about bringing it back into balance. It's about kind of, I don't know, like when our tattoos have been healing or something like that, and we put on the coconut oil and the red's gone, and you're just like, there's that nature bringing it all back into balance. The word balance for us as a couple doesn't feel, it's not a trigger word. It doesn't feel confrontational in any way. It's something that we both resonate as a good thing, so maybe you can look at the way that you communicate with your partner and begin to bring a little bit of that in. We're running out of time, unfortunately, but there's some other things that I wanted to quickly say about daily practices and being anchoring into like the masculine and the feminine energy. So I'm just going to rattle through them. So daily practices to anchor in your femininity. Okay. Explore things like numerology, astrology, spirituality, ancient texts, anything like that. Explore the wonders of the world, the woo-woo stuff, the way the clouds form, that sort of thing, the meaning behind things, the cycle of the moon, the cycle of nature, that sort of thing. Anchor into that. Practice making your routines turn into rituals, from brushing your teeth, applying your makeup, doing your skin, whatever. Spend more money on your skincare and the quality of the food that you put into your body than on face creams and makeup and all that sort of thing. Again, returning from the shadow feminine, that's all about how you look, into the divine feminine, that is all about nurturing and looking after yourself, so that the light from within literally shines out through your very exterior. And that's what's beautiful. Okay. Be kind every day in some way. And this is kind of, again, this is really touching in on the divine feminine, but if you can just show kindness, patience, love, tolerance, acceptance out to somebody, do it. It's something free that you can give, and it literally changes people's perspectives, attitudes, and that can then go on and change the world. Kindness is everything. So practice kindness as often as you can. Look after yourself with healthy foods and drinks. Okay, back to kind of not keeping up with the Joneses, not believing you need to look a certain way, nothing like that. Just doing what you can for your body, for your health, and taking full responsibility for that through nurture, through love, through acceptance, all those sorts of things. And put the good stuff in. It will enable the masculine side of you to be strong. It will enable the feminine energies to really be able to create and dance. It's all about, you get out what you put in everything in life. So do that with your body as well. Nurture, heal, feed your body. Don't feed the tongue. Don't feed the ego. The tongue and the taste buds are linked directly to the ego. Oh, I like that. Oh, I'll have more of that. Oh, I deserve that. You know, it's that sort of process. Healing your body through plants, through natural sources is huge in terms of how you can divide energy and how you can actually be as a physical being. So do that. Do something that you love and that uplifts you daily, whatever it is. It can be something physical, it can be something creative, whatever. But it's just that thing that makes you feel alive, makes it feel fun. It can be dancing around while you're brushing your teeth, listening to your music. It can be running. It can be cycling to and from work, makes you feel alive. One of those things. Anything that kind of makes you feel, oh, that was good. I needed that. That sort of feeling lifts you up, lightens you, embodies your passion, and then you push on through. Practice empathy. But you can practice empathy when you're driving. You can practice empathy when you're listening to people, when you're responding, especially when you're listening to problems and crisis and that sort of thing. Again, really listening, really responding in. Practice empathy. Practice projecting yourself out to be in somebody else's shoes and accept what you find there and accept why it's there. That's empathy. Okay? And teach it wherever you can. For the masculine energy, positive parts of masculine energy you can do every day. Journaling. Okay, journaling's fantastic masculine energy. Writing everything down, clarifying everything, getting it all out, logical thought. Sometimes it will be emotional, but it's getting it all out there. There's a focus to it. There's a drive in it, getting it out there, whether you journal in the morning, whether you journal in the evening, just keep going. Look for backup proof for feelings. So take yourself out of your emotion for the moment and look at the reality of the situation and make sure you're not just constantly coming from a place of upset or emotion. Okay, emotions are fantastic. They help you experience. But when they go into shadow feminine and it's an overdrive, it takes you into crazy places. You're overthinking. You're gone mental in your mind. And reality becomes abstract and you look at it through those glasses. And you don't want that. You want to be able to see the situation that you're dealing with so that you don't have to jump to all these kind of emotional conclusions. Set a routine of self-care that gives you a focus point and a start and not waver from what you need to do. So again, if you decide, right, I want to do something for my health, I'm looking after myself, going into the feminine energy, I'm going to do that by cycling to and from work every day. And every day you get up, you get that same train, you cycle to work, you cycle home from work, and you're putting into yourself. Okay? And it's regiment. It's what you do. That's your thing. Speak your mind honestly and from the heart. Be loyal and true. I don't need to say any more from that. Be honest, be authentic, be you. Stand tall for who you are. Make a list of the day's jobs to do and stick to it. So this is how you get stuff done in your wibbly wobbly female world. Make a list. Many of us do it. Make a list and then go through everything, ticking it off as well so you feel that sense of achievement. And then at the end of it, you give yourself permission to rest and to enjoy that rest and to sit down and to have your cup of tea. And this is something that masculine energy is very good at. It's fantastic. Look for it. Don't play games or manipulate people. Guys tend to be quite straightforward. They tend to be quite direct in their approach to things, whether it be a relationship, whether it be friendships, whatever. They're going to say what they feel. The shadow feminine is very good at manipulating things and changing around the way things feel. Talking to people, not talking to people, for an example, telling some people things and telling other people other things. That manipulation, let go of it. Be honest, be direct, speak from the heart. I really hope that's helped kind of explain how you can begin to bring both the energies of the divine masculine and the divine feminine into your lives and to begin to kind of balance them out so that you're leaning into one and into the other as you need to and filling yourself up with both aspects positively so that the shadow masculine and the shadow feminine just become obsolete and drift away. You don't need the insecurities because you've developed that inner strength. You don't need to be ego-fueled and driven and in a hierarchy because you already know that inner strength that you have, Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for engaging in tonight's show. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you again for kind of tuning in every week and staying with this journey with me. I've really enjoyed it. Take care, stay at peace, and enjoy the full moon tomorrow. And if you can, embrace some of this stuff and start it tomorrow. Let tomorrow be the day that really impacts the rest of your life. Good night and namaste.
Humanity has been on an epic journey of discovery, learning the truth about the world we live in. New discoveries about the true origins of humanity, ancient history, free energy, as well as the systematic corruption of world governments are now on the forefront of our daily reality. Is the world headed towards destruction based on control and power? Or is an opportunity now being presented to shift and uplift into a higher consciousness? My name is Mel V, co-founder and creative director of Conscious Consumer Network, an independent broadcast network that was launched on the 1st of January 2015. In the last 3 years, Conscious Consumer Network has broadcast over 2,800 shows in multiple languages, featuring guests from across the world, whilst creating media that is aimed at the creation of a free, fair, peaceful, just, sustainable world. Conscious Consumer Network provides full training and an interactive support network for all broadcasters, and we are always looking for inspiring and educational content.
Hi, this is Lady Liberty.
And this is Miro Siegel.
In 2018, Conscious Consumer Network has expanded to multiple broadcast locations, increasing our availability and reach across the world, remaining on the cutting edge of independent media. If we wish to create a better world, we must first create better media, geared towards real education instead of indoctrination. You guys really are what changing the world is going to be about. It's educating kids at a grassroots level. Having become a pillar of stability in the turbulent world of independent media, we have even more going on in 2018. Conscious Consumer Network is a publicly funded network, and we rely on all of you to keep us on the air. Show your support for independent media by donating to our 2018 Network Support Fund. Dare to seek a better world. Support independent media.